How do you think nanotechnology plays a role, Ashish?
So, although I do agree with your points, Chris, I think that it's important to bear in mind that the pharmaceutical pipeline has been basically developed much like evolution has kind of come to pass. So it is the best way we have found to develop a drug and take it to a safe level of consumption for millions or billions of people. And there are going to be outliers in those groups, and you will have the ambulance chasers that follow those particular areas out. But really, I think there is going to be exploratory work. Many pharma companies worldwide have downsized many of their R&D divisions. As I mentioned previously, they actually are creating collaborative teams working with one another, which might also support your notion of the oligarchy of sorts. And the other thing to bear in mind is that you're right that the technology that's going to be in the 21st century is really going to be more about taking a totally different approach, 180-degree approach to medicine, thinking about it in terms of how not to kill the patient and the cancer, but really how to just kill the cancer, how to treat the disease at a genetic level. And we're going to see a lot of disruptors, I think, in that field start to emerge, many of which I think are going to come from academia.
If I could just comment, what we've seen in medicine, too, is a major disruption every 50 years. So if we go back to the end of the 19th century, there were no antibiotics. Basically, we're starting to get them from the dye industry in Germany. So companies like Bayer and Agfa and Merck were big dye makers from the end of the 19th century, and they found that side effects of some of their dyes were that they would, it was like aspirin or sulfonylamides. They would help you get over diseases. Then came insulin, and in Peoria, Illinois, the World War II effort to create lots and lots of penicillin, using essentially beer technologies to brew these things up. And that really kicked off sort of the latter 50 years of the 20th century and what we see as modern pharmaceuticals. But I think the 21st century is going to move towards nanotechnology, understanding the mechanics, actually, of disease at a not cellular level, but at a chemical level, and problem solving and modifying these things and potentially replacing body parts.
Yeah, I think pharma's I think evolution is actually a really good way to look at it because, pharma companies will typically start with 10,000 compounds, and then one of them will go to the FDA trials, and then as Ashish pointed out, one of those 23 will make it to market, right? So they have an absurd amount of, $1 billion, right, invested in each drug. And so you can sort of, I don't want to say sunk cost, but there is this mindset that if the drug has gotten this far, we have to bring it to market, and I think they're directed toward their goal of getting small molecules to market, and the size of the market is of course phenomenal, right? But I think it makes them, because they've evolved so specifically into a niche. Niche isn't quite the right word because their market is enormous, but I do think they'll be very vulnerable to nanotechnology or tissue engineering or cell biology advances, and I don't know. I've left my crystal ball at home. Don't know which one of them is going to knock them off, but I do think that we're due for sort of a revolution on the scale of penicillin.
Well, and their business model has an inherent weakness because FDA trials may cost $1 billion for a new drug. The only drugs that really make it to market are lifestyle drugs. Because what you need to do, you can't have a drug for somebody who's going to die. They stop paying right away, and often they're out of work. You want something for people who are healthy, who are going to live for another 20 years. And so it's going to be Paxil, it's going to be Lipitor, it's going to be Prozac, it's going to be Viagra. It's going to be these kind of lifestyle drugs that are really important, not the orphan drugs that, say, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are pursuing.
We'll be right back.